Hi everybody, welcome to a very special episode of Dive with Cát Thảo. Today we are filming from Sydney, Australia, a place where I grew up in, and we're in the offices of an amazing company called Harrison.AI, and it's my absolute privilege and honor to be speaking to my teacher and great friend, Peter Huỳnh. Peter, welcome to the show. I'm so excited to speak to you.
Thank you, Tao. I'm so excited as well. I'm so delighted, and I think just as much as you've said that I've been your teacher, you're my teacher. So I think it's two learners and two teachers speaking together today.
Peter Huỳnh is bridging technology leadership and spiritual mentorship. Peter Huỳnh stands at the powerful intersection of cutting-edge technology and mindful leadership as the Chief Strategy Officer of Harrison.AI, a pioneering medtech AI company that's transforming healthcare diagnostics across 15 countries, including with their cancer detection software. His leadership has played a significant role in the company recently securing an impressive $112 million Series C funding round and is expanding into pathology through a strategic joint venture with Sonic Healthcare. His exceptional career trajectory includes 11 years in venture capital across Asia Pacific, where he co-founded Singapore-based Qualgrow, investing in groundbreaking companies like PatSnap and ShopBack. Previously, as director of Singtel Innovate, he established Optus Innovate to nurture Australian tech startups. But what truly distinguishes Peter is his 20-year commitment to mindfulness and meditation, dedicating the past 7 years to mentoring founders, investors, and leaders on their spiritual journeys. Having worked with 3 different spiritual teachers, each for approximately 2 years, he integrates these profound experiences into his leadership approach. He is an unapologetically heart-led leader. After formative years and education in Sydney, his career took him across the UK, Europe, and Asia, before returning to Sydney, where he now lives with his wife and 2 children, embracing what he calls the beautiful journey of life and discovery together.
Hi, I'm Mimi Vu from Race Partners. Geopolitical shifts, trade tensions, market volatility. In an uncertain world, where can investors and businesses find clarity? The Vietnam ESG Investor Conference is your roadmap. With tariffs and elections shaping supply chains and global capital flows, Vietnam's ESG transformation offers stability and growth. You'll hear from top CEOs, investors, and founders who are future-proofing portfolios and businesses through renewable energy, responsible manufacturing, and high-impact ventures. And you'll connect with potential partners through networking and investment matchmaking sessions. In turbulence, the best investors don't retreat, they reposition. Join the movement for ESG in Vietnam. Scan the QR code or click the link below to secure your spot today.
Thank you, Peter. Before we begin our conversation, I would like to play the sound of a bell.
Sure.
So that we can ground ourselves. Thank you. So, the beginning of this show, we normally play a game. And it's from an app that I developed called Dive With Me. Amazing. In order to deepen the quality of conversations. So you get to choose what level. There's 5 levels, Peter.
Okay.
And the levels correspond to levels of vulnerability. 1 is the lowest and 5 is the highest. At the end of the show, we do have to go to level 5.
Sure.
So the thing is, I will play it as well, so I will have to answer the question as well.
Okay.
So what level do you want to start off with?
Well, I mean, we've been doing this work together for a long time. It feels odd for us not to go straight to level 5, right? I mean, that's what I'm feeling. It's like that's the, a hot sauce level that we should go to. Let's just go right there. We're both Vietnamese. We can both eat spicy things, so let's just go there.
Well, I developed that habit to get to very spicy levels. So yeah, but okay. So there's different categories. There's self. There's general. What do you want to choose?
Let's go to self.
Okay, let's press it.
All right. Let's see. All right.
Level 5.
Level surrender. I like it. All right. Describe in detail the last time you cried in front of people and the last time you cried alone. Wow. It was actually quite recent.
Oh.
Quite recent. I had a conversation with somebody who I'd been working with for many years. I think 4 or so years. And this person I would no longer be working with. Moving forward, and on that call, I'm not ashamed to say that I shed some tears, being sad that we would no longer work together, but also I think wishing that a way that we could continue to work together in some way, and it was a form of grieving, of that. It caught me by surprise.
Really?
I didn't intend to cry, but going through the conversation, it came to me, and I allowed it to be. So that was maybe 2 weeks ago.
Wow. Wow. Beautiful.
On my own, that's probably been a bit more time. I do some breath work from time to time. And I think the last time I did some breath work, it might have been maybe 6 months or so ago. And that's probably the last time I shed a tear. I wasn't alone per se. I was alone in the room, but my breath work, teacher was on the call, and stepping me through that work, there were tears that came. So I don't know if technically that's right.
Yes.
But the last time I was physically on my own and cried, it was at that time.
Can you explain to the viewers what breathwork is?
Yeah, breathwork is a form of meditation in a way whereby there is intensive breathing involved. Usually it lasts for about half an hour or so, and you're typically lying flat on the floor. And different breathwork teachers have different sort of methods in terms of how you're breathing, but essentially you're breathing quite intensively during that time. And as a part of that process, you can observe feelings, emotions, thoughts arising and noting those. It sort of gets you into a state where you can, in a way, be a little bit more outside of the mind and more into the body. Such that you can observe yourself in that way.
And I've also done breath work very recently. And what I found is that it can tap into your subconscious in a very deep way, and you connect to the things that are there that you don't realize from a day-to-day perspective.
Spot on. So true. So true. Outside of the noise and the buzz that's in the mind, that's in life. And so, it's been a really helpful tool for me. And I do a session maybe once every 3 or 6 months, something like that.
Can I inquire, what is it that you found that made you cry?
What is it that I found that made me cry? I would share with you. It's just that I can't remember at this point in time.
Okay.
I don't recall what it was. Maybe
or a feeling.
The feeling was connecting to a part of myself that felt like it had been there for a very long time, but had not been heard. And so it felt like a part of me coming back home, and I think that's what triggered me to cry. But I don't know exactly what that was. I can't recall, but the feeling I remember.
Wow, beautiful, Peter. So my turn to answer that question.
Yeah, go ahead.
People will know I cry all the time. And 2 days ago, I think now, I was giving a keynote at a conference with a lot of Vietnamese Australians, and I was sharing with the audience my story, a Vietnamese Australian story of struggle, of poverty. The moment that I cried was I had shared that my book that was published in Australia, or 10 years ago now, 2015. 9 years later, it was published in Vietnam, in Vietnamese. And it was translated into Vietnamese, and it was an audio book in Vietnamese as well. It was the first time that my parents, because their English is not very good, they were able to be witnesses to their own story. And one incredibly beautiful thing that unfolded from that was that my father, who's 80 now, he said that during the time of our life and our struggle, I could never really see the person that your mother was or is. As he became a listener to his own story and the story of his family, the character that emerged, that was graceful, resilient, courageous, loving, and so beautiful, is his wife. And he said to her that I feel such deep regret because now at 80, I'm closer to death, but it is only now that I'm falling in love with you for the first time.
Oh, that's so beautiful. That's so incredibly, incredibly beautiful. I'm so happy for him. I'm so happy for her. And I'm so happy for you and your family. That's such a beautiful thing. You know, we could go through our whole lives and miss that. And I'm glad that it's been found.
Yeah.
Because maybe the timing, if we sort of step through it from a universal perspective, maybe the timing doesn't matter so much, but that it is found.
Yeah, that's right. And I said to my mum, because the way that she responded was, she goes, "Oh, sớn quá, sao cải lương quá." You know, she's like, "It's so cheesy, stop it." And then I said to my mum, "Please let him love you. Please let him love you." And the last time I cried by myself was actually like 2 hours ago.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yep. I was sitting in the hotel room and I was thinking about this conversation, and I was thinking about the last several days. And I was thinking about the absolute privilege of being here right now, and all of my ancestors and what has come before, and the greatness of my parents, how they live and what they've been passing to me, and how I get the opportunity to make choices and live a life that they never could. And I felt so overwhelmed by that. And I just started crying with deep gratitude. Deep gratitude.
Oh, that's beautiful. I mean, as we say, and as we have said, you know, doing this work together, everything has to be exactly perfect for this present moment to arise. Can you imagine when we did this work together? It may have been, who knows, 7, 8 years ago now, that we would be here today having this conversation. It's quite incredible.
Yeah.
And on my end, I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful, and I'm oftentimes overwhelmed with gratitude as well. You know, being where we are, being where I am, doing this work that I get to do. You're so right. We have choice. We have agency to the extent that not only our parents, but many of our ancestors for generations and generations did not have.
That's right.
So what do we do with it? Who are we? What do we want? What do we want to bring into this world? I've been on such a mission to help myself and others realize that as a part of this journey, particularly over the last 7 or 8 years, where I've been trying to help as many people as possible, founders, investors, people who work in the startup space, to help them to bring clarity to themselves in terms of who they are and what they want to bring into the world.
Peter, you know, when I came across you, several years back now. You had a really successful career in investments. You know, you set up your own investment fund together with a couple of other people. You were able to raise huge amounts of money in a really short period of time. And I know that it's because of the reputation, you know, the work ethic, the integrity that you and the partners at Qualgrow could mobilize that much capital in that period of time. And now you've left that and you're working at an incredible healthcare technology company. But when I came across you and we started to develop a deep relationship, you were my meditation teacher.
Yep, indeed.
And you were so crucial, Peter, to my healing journey. And when I tell people that my meditation teacher is an investment fund person, people were like, huh? What? And you then also were helping founders also meditate. Can you talk me through where did that journey start? How come you found this spiritual practice? How did you integrate that with the finance world and the spiritual part of yourself?
It's a great question. I think the core of it comes from the same expression, although manifest in different ways.
Right.
And so I figured out some time ago that my expression in life was to help others realize their life's work. And for that to be true, they need to understand who they are and what they're looking to bring into this world. And so whether it is through the form of finance, through venture capital, or whether it's through the work of mindfulness, for me, they are just different expressions of the same core thought. And that core thought happens to be deeply embedded into my being. And I came to realize what that expression was many years ago now. So I started on the path of mindfulness maybe 20 or so years ago now. In fact, maybe a little bit more than that. I ended up working with a few different teachers, 3 different teachers, working with them for about 2 years or so each. This is deep work on self. And so as a part of that work and as a part of that journey, you know, I realized what I was here for. And so after that, and not too long after sort of sense checking this with a few people, including yourself as well, you know, I was thinking of, well, how do I bring this to the world? And so sort of understanding the sort of ikigai of, you know, all of those things, it felt like a one-to-one coaching relationship, teacher relationship is where I could bring this to bear the most, because the journey is so deep and it's so personal.
And intimate.
So personal, so intimate. And so, you know, doing it with a class, it didn't feel quite right. Doing it, you know, as a broadcast, it didn't feel quite right. But doing it as a one-to-one, you know, process. And the process typically lasts somewhere between 3 to 6 months. It's different for different people. And different people land at different places. But, you know, my task was to hold the space, to bring them on the journey inside in relation to self. And then as they got to know themselves better, then, you know, their evolution as leaders would come to bear. And so I've been very fortunate. I mean, I've worked with many people now in Australia, across Asia, founders, investors, many investors, and helped them through that journey. And when I'm in session with somebody, and the way that it works is that we would do the session in meditation. Our conversations are in meditation. And that helps to unpack the layers and get to the core as deeply as we can. And so it's been 7 or 8 years of doing that. I've taken a little bit of a break over the last few months, but I'll come back to it again soon. And I feel like it's my expression in the world. You know, my cells are all buzzing, you know, telling me this is what I'm here for. And so similarly, on the other end with venture capital, working with founders, working with teams to give them the energy, finance being energy, that they need to move their businesses from one state to the next, from one state of evolution to the next state of evolution. That also is another expression of the same core principle that seems to be deeply ingrained in me.
Wow. Okay. Thank you so much, Peter. When you left your own business to join this healthcare tech startup, which is now gained so much attention in the world, and I think the former, I don't know if she's former or current or of chair of Tesla, has joined the board of Harrison.AI, right? I asked you at one point, what would be a barrier to this organization achieving its ambition and its potential? And you said to me, the barrier, and I was thinking, okay, maybe market challenges or competitors or, you know, whatever. And what stayed with me is your response. You said the only critical barrier is the limit to which the founders grow.
Yes.
And there's a direct correlation between their growth as individuals and humans and the growth of this business.
Yes, indeed. This would have been a few years ago.
Yes, when you just, you know, you hadn't formally joined yet. Can you tell me more about that? And has that changed over time? And
I mean, as a principle, it's so true. The organization's limits tend to be the limits in which exist at the very core, at the very top. And that can play itself out in terms of culture, in terms of decision making, in terms of hiring, in terms of, you know, ethically running a business, all of those sorts of things. What I love about the founders here at Harrison are that they're quite courageous in their personal evolution as leaders. And that's an absolutely necessary ingredient. On top of that, though, are other ingredients that are needed as well. You know, a deep sense of honesty, a deep looking in the mirror whenever we haven't walked the talk, a moral imperative to continue to level up and to improve. And so, you know, we continue to be on that journey as a collective, not just founders, but also as a management group and as a company. And so all of these things need to be true. And I believe it today more than ever before, that even over and above technological challenges, market challenges, regulatory challenges, financial challenges, that the personal challenges from a leadership perspective are by far and away the biggest limits to, or enablers to success.
Wow. I also found that when you joined the organization, one example of how this principle was implemented at the organization, which I found quite unconventional for a startup, is that every manager had a coach at a point in time, which is not a type of investment that many startups actually make. Can you talk to me about how that resource allocation was made, and was it a difficult process?
Yeah, I mean, it's something that we have sort of come in ebbs and flows, but yes, absolutely. I mean, the impetus behind it is that we know that folks join our organization for the mission. And it's a beautiful mission to bring healthcare equity to the rest of the world by increasing the capacity for diagnosis and treatment through radiology, pathology, and who knows whatever other ology in the future. And it's something that is deeply ingrained in everybody joining the company. That is a wonderful reason to join. But the reasons for people staying or leaving tend to be their relationship with their managers.
Yes.
And we realize this through, you know, some important work done from Google called Project Oxygen and some other work that they've done as well. And so, you know, we have a lot of emerging leaders in the company. Some have had experience leading before, others have not. And so we embarked on a program of providing coaching to all of those leaders. That ran its course for a certain period of time. We also had programs outside of that as well. And we're coming back to that. We're coming back to more coaching, more support for leaders. And we're trying to do it in a way that is scalable for, a much bigger company today than we were a few years ago. And that's a challenge for us, not just in terms of leadership coaching, but in many other ways, in terms of how do we create these career paths for a much bigger, group of people? How do we instill key elements of culture with so many more people coming and going? These are all challenges that we are facing at the moment, which is very common for our life cycle stage. But nevertheless, what we need to do and what we have done, but I think what we need to do even more so is really double down on our priority and focus around culture and around leadership.
Peter, I know you as someone who's very much heart-led.
Yeah.
There's head, there's heart, there's hands,
Yes.
the practical doing, behavior stuff.
Yeah.
So much of about culture is about heart, right? And before, in preparation for this conversation, you did a Lumina Spark report, and the results I found, not surprising and surprising. You are extremely empathetic. Your highest overextension is that your empathy under pressure turns into emotionally stretched, holding space for so many people that it's exhausting, it's tiring. And so this is showing that in the stress state, you have a 75% tendency to actually care so much that you get to the point where it's quite tiring. Does this resonate with you? What is the reality?
It resonates deeply. I mean, the organization as a whole, I would describe as introverted, intellectual, therefore, more so collectively anyway, led by the head. What I'm really proud of is that in our organization, we use this as language. So we talk about the budgeting process, for example, being the alignment of head, heart, and hands. We talk about our heartbeats as an organization, which is, when we all get together and we have this rhythm of the business. And these are called our heartbeats. And so I'm really proud of instilling or helping to instill that type of culture and that type of language within the company. What I'd love to see is for us to be even more heart-led than we are at the moment. And, I feel the weight. I feel the weight of when we don't walk the talk or when we haven't been as heart-driven as, I feel that we could be, because the opportunity to be a leading company, to be a lighthouse in terms of leading with heart is there. And I'd hate for us not to, take that opportunity. And so I really feel it deeply. And so whenever we don't. And so when you talk about the results from the Lumina sort of survey and, how that's playing out, that resonates so deeply because I'm feeling that even today, right now. I'm feeling so much energy has been put into helping us to lead more by heart. And I feel like it's a heavy load to bear. I'm certainly not the only person within the organization who tends to lead more by heart, but it feels like trying to move an entire organization in that direction takes up a lot of energy, and I'm expending that energy at the moment.
So if this is currently where you're at and pretty much in a overextended state in terms of over empathy, you're compensating because there's so much logic. So the other side of empathy is logic. And if there's too logic over here, you're the one that's actually bringing the empathy in. How are you managing this? How do you keep well and grounded and how do you keep going?
With difficulty. I find that I am feeling the emotional weight, and there is a level of of depleted energy as a result. I'm finding spots here and there to pick up my energy. I'm looking to do things that give energy rather than take energy. Had this great suggestion from our Chief Revenue Officer just even a couple of days ago, who said, actually, Peter, next time we go on our customer tour, come with me. You know, it gives so much energy because, you know, the work that we do saves lives.
Wow.
Right? And it changes, you know, how clinicians go about doing their work. It makes them more effective. It reduces the mental strain that they have to undertake on a daily basis. You know, various clinical studies that we're doing in different places around the world showing how effective our solution is. I believe that our solution can pick up lung cancer on average 10 months earlier. Wow. Yeah, and so, you know, this is a fundamental impact and it genuinely saves lives. In fact, we just had I'm so lucky to be a part of this, but we had a message through our internal, you know, messaging system, Slack, just on Friday with one of our very senior clinicians saying, team, you should be very proud of this. Let me give you an overview of a particular case that happened just a couple of days ago that, you know, we picked up something which has been missed and, you know, in clinical practice, and we only picked it up just because of the tool that you've built.
Oh my gosh,
and this was to do with somebody's brain and, you know, that had been missed in that consultation. It would have been 6 to 12 months before that person would come back. By that time, that particular, you know, illness would have been at a point where it might not have been treatable. And so, yeah, we should be very, very proud of the work that we're doing. And this team is just full of incredible people doing their very best work. And from here, you know, in Sydney, but also in Vietnam, in India, you know, there are contributors all around the world to this business, but it's headquartered here in Sydney.
You know, at the conference that I was speaking at a couple of days ago, Peter, one of the panelists was, you know, asked something like, how can you be courageous and be your authentic self and take those risks when you've been conditioned to sort of assimilate in many ways, especially as a minority? And then she says, well, I always come back to this quote, which is like, no one's going to die. And in actually this case, in most cases, it's like true. But in this case, it's like your work is actually someone's going to die. People are dying, you know, and your work is life-saving.
I think all of that has been a part of the journey. I know I have this feeling in my bones that there's more to come. I don't know what that looks like. I would love to spend more time in Vietnam. I would love to help more folks who have a Vietnamese heritage or a background, you know, with their work and their career paths. And I just look to do that in ways that are authentic to myself. And I'm sure they will manifest and arise in time to come.
Peter, you talk about that journey inwards home and then, you know, the physical external connecting to your ancestral land. Can you tell me more about that journey inward home in relation to your cultural identity? What was that like? Where did you arrive at before you could externally connect?
The core of it was really my relationship with my family to start with.
Wow.
Yeah, my relationship with my parents. And I think a lot of that was the start of the journey home, the work inside. To get to the core of who I am, it sits amongst a lot of onion layers of relationship with parents, with a difficult upbringing, with losing a sense of self, and having to unpack all of those things before finding as they say, the diamond that's inside, the part that doesn't change. And so I think as I got to understand those parts of me more, I got to accept, I got to forgive, and there was a lot to accept and there was a lot to forgive. And once I was able to do that, that's when, you know, because the way that it feels is these hardened parts of self that feel resentful for what has occurred. And those things softened once I realized that they were there waiting to be heard, sitting with them, softening, and sharing their message. And as that happens through multiple layers, you get closer to that sense of self. And that's the work that I had been on for many years as a part of this journey.
Wow.
Yeah, it's almost like a chronology going backwards in time, addressing key moments that have sort of caused a hardening because, you know, we're sort of on defense to look after ourselves because difficult things have happened. And it was identifying them. They're waiting there to be heard, sitting with them, listening, and then bringing them back home. And as you go through that chronology all the way back, you get closer to that sense of self, arising.
You know, what I'm hearing is that, you know, it's like the moments of shame. You know,
Yes.
the first moments of shame, indignity, like where then from that, so much connected to being, you know, a racial minority, so much connected to being a refugee, displaced person, what have you. And then going back and to actually have the courage and the discipline to not look away, and then to embrace and to spotlight and go deeper inwards to see what persists, what wounds have persisted that's still there. And as you say, to accept and to forgive. Now, what I'm finding, Peter, certainly in my own experience, that I have found about myself is that I developed a pattern of avoidance and avoidance of not looking at those wounds and therefore not healing from them. And my particular pattern was overachievement and hyperproductivity and addicted to work.
I know this one.
And the more that I perform in a certain way, the more that I thought that I could get worth and validation and external adulation that could then, you know, like fill the void of shame that was already there.
Yeah.
There are so many patterns of avoidance, like gaming, excessive gaming, shopping, like addictions, substance abuse, whatever, right?
Yep.
Did you have any avoidance sort of, you know, tendencies? And what was the inflection point that caused you to go, I need to look at this and embrace, like, and look inwards? What happened?
I don't know exactly what it was, but I'm glad that it wasn't until, you know, something monumental happened, you know, that I became ill or, you know, I'm some shock to the system, because that's how a lot of people come to this work.
That's right.
And I feel so fortunate that that wasn't the case for me, but it would have only been a matter of time.
Right.
You know, the person that I am today is quite different to the person that I was before starting to do this work. And it was painful, and it's work. And maybe just to share with everybody the sort of steps that we would go through, or I would go through with anybody in session, which is we slow down, and we sit, and we breathe, with nothing else to do but to sit and breathe and be. And we observe what arises. And usually these wounds, these hurts are knocking on the door, sometimes faintly because everything else in the world is so loud. And oftentimes slightly louder until they cannot be avoided anymore.
Yeah.
But when you're sitting in stillness, you can observe and you can hear. And when you hear one of these things arise, our process is simply to sit with it, with nothing else to do but to sit and understand and observe. And usually that is in the form of an image, a thought, a feeling, a color, whatever it might be. The mind speaks in complex, flowery language, but the body speaks simply. It has a broad palette, but it speaks directly and simply, without qualifiers. And so when that arises, to sit with it and understand it, and from something that starts off very hard, the feeling is something that is hard. Usually it's shamed or angry or afraid. As you sit with it and observe it, and hold space for it, it softens and softens and softens, and it reveals what it's trying to say. And when you come to that understanding, that part of you comes home. And then the integration into life tends to happen outside of that, without much need to push or to strive. And so that's the process. It's simply said, hard to do. It requires courage and it requires great honesty. And if we have that, we can do this work.
And Peter, I've experienced this obviously directly as your student, you know, and you've helped me to, in these sessions, with you as a guide, because I think when we go deep inside alone, sometimes it's too scary. Sometimes like it's so scary that you know there's something there and you don't want to look. And it's really helpful to have a person who you can trust, who's walking with you.
Yes.
And I found that in you, Peter. I found that in you, and I know the first few sessions, my God, the things that came up, I really never gave it enough dignity. I never gave it enough dignity.
Yeah.
So you said 2 words on your inner journey home: acceptance and forgiveness. What is waiting for you, Peter, to be accepted and to be forgiven, that hasn't been accepted or forgiven yet?
The journey is so steep and the steps are not linear. I don't know exactly what it is, but it feels like a constant letting go. And it's constant not in the sense of that it is regular in terms of timing. In fact, it could sort of comes and goes in its own sort of ebb and flow in its own time. But there is this progressive letting go of resistance. Resistance to this feeling, this knowing that we are a part of a genuinely connected collective.
Yeah.
And that the illusion is the illusion of self. And so how far do you go in letting go of that illusion of self? And I'm only partway on that journey. The things that are real and, you know, physical in this life still take up a lot of my consciousness. But over time, I get the sense that I'm letting go further and further. What that looks like, I'm not sure. But in order for that letting go to happen, it is acceptance, it is forgiveness. And those moments will arise. Life will bring those to me. Exactly what that looks like, I don't know, but I'm looking forward to it.
What was a huge forgiveness that was a big inflection point for you? A specific one?
Yeah, it was to do with my mum. You know, I've had a difficult relationship with my mum growing up. My dad studied at Sydney University, and we, for quite some time, I think for 4 years or so, lived in Wollongong whilst he lived on campus.
Oh, wow.
And so he would only travel back every few weeks or so on the weekends to see us. In fact, we lived in a flat with, there were 10 of us in that flat.
Wow.
In Wollongong, my uncles worked at the steelworks in Port Kembla.
Oh, wow.
The ones that could work. And so I was the only, you know, child in the group, at least for some time.
Yeah.
And Mum was the disciplinarian.
Oh.
And she was a tough disciplinarian. And it affected me for many, many years to come. She would have been in her mid-20s at the time. I would have been a toddler. And so given the way that I was disciplined at the time, you know, I came to realize later on that seeds of anger and shame, you know, stemmed back from that time.
Wow.
Reconcile that, forgive myself, forgive Mum, and forgive what happened and accept what happened at the time. I had to be in that room at those times as my older self, holding the space for myself to sit in that place at that time and understand what was going on. Deep, deep pain. And that's why I feel that I've done this depth of work to understand myself well. And how that's translated is a deep gratitude for myself, for how I've been supported through this journey, and then reflecting that to others.
Wow.
Yeah, but it was a very, very difficult journey back. And those things can remain hidden for a long period of time and show themselves in really difficult ways.
Yeah.
And in difficult behaviors whilst I was growing up.
Yeah. So that inner child, that had to experience the fact that your mother could not be tender, that she had to cut that off as a survival mechanism, and through war and fear had to be the way that she was to you.
Yes.
How did that, before you could sort of like heal from that, how did that impact you? How did that stay with you? How did it manifest in your behavior?
I was growing up with anger, with fear. There was always a bogeyman, imaginary bogeyman. There was always some sense of anger. I didn't actually even know where it came from, but it wouldn't take much to trigger. Certainly when I was growing up in high school and, during that sort of late adolescent period, I know it sounds odd to hear it today, but I was an angry young man.
Wow.
Yeah, not knowing why.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And this work has been so instrumental in understanding actually who's really at the very core.
Yeah.
And knowing that it's not that.
The angry young men who have experiences but don't really look inwards and heal from it, what type of leaders are they? You must have come across other people who haven't done that work and who are in leadership positions. How do they behave?
I mean, I don't know what their journey may have been to this point.
Yep.
For those who haven't done the work, what I can say is that overarchingly they will be ego-driven.
Right.
Because what I've understood, at least for myself, and it may be different for others, is that the protective mechanism from the body is to actually recede, and the protective mechanism from the mind is to take over.
What does that look like?
Well,
in a practical sense?
Almost in a biological sense, almost thinking that the only perspective that can manifest is one that comes from the calculator.
The logic.
The logic.
Right.
And that's the only place that it can come from. There is no space for anything else. In fact,
or emotions,
in fact,
feelings.
there's no recognition of anything else.
Right.
And so, that's how it shows itself. It shows itself purely in ego. And so this work is so important for leaders in particular. That's why I'm on this mission to, share this with as many leaders as possible, because it impacts decision making. It impacts how you look at the world. It impacts how you treat your colleagues, your team. And that's why I, focus on founders, on, people who are leading teams, because their behavior impacts everybody around them.
If there are founders, young founders out there, especially, around the world, but also specifically in Vietnam, who are struggling to feel that they're being authentic to themselves, and they're on a difficult leadership journey, what would you say to them?
Slow down. Slow down. Breathe. Just breathe. And simply allow yourself to observe who you are and ask yourself the question, genuinely, with great curiosity, who am I? What am I about? The answers are not outside. They're not in Silicon Valley. They're not, with the next product release. The answers are inside. And once you land on clarity of what's happening inside, you'll start to see that the things outside will look to align themselves around that. And it's possible because you will know who you are. And as you shine that light into the world, things will align outside accordingly. I always say to myself more than anything else, the inside and the outside are the same. The biggest and the smallest are the same. How you think and feel about the world and yourself in that microsecond is exactly the same, blown out like a fractal. And so your relationship with yourself is the most important place to start.
Wow. Can you share an example of a person that you've worked with, perhaps a founder, who came to you with that struggle, but was able to align that, the external, the internal, and have a healthy relationship to their self that then unlocked, you know, the outside?
I mean, there are many. And it's funny because it happens at different levels of depth. And one of the challenges sitting on my side of the chair is not to judge where people come to the work and not to judge where they've landed.
Right.
Only that we have moved.
Right.
And
okay.
that it either is somebody else who will take them to the next step of the journey, but that they're on the journey themselves.
Right.
And so, I mean, it's so personal. I'm sort of reluctant to share too openly.
Yeah.
But I mean, maybe that's the best way that I can describe it. You know, as they've come to understand themselves better, they've come to understand that the way that they have thought about themselves has manifested in how they look at the world. And so once their lens on themselves shift, their lens on the world shifts, and the decisions that they make also shift.
Wow.
And it's all different parts of self, at least in my language, coming back home. Parts that have been excised in a way through methods of self-preservation. Typically in, you know, childhood, early adolescence, survival mechanisms. And so as those have been resolved, that appreciation and understanding and compassion for self comes to the fore. And when that happens, you can see that compassion extending to all those around them.
And the outside reflects the inside, and inside reflects outside. And I presume that there's an unlocking of an energy, like it's an empowered state, and not a fear-based state.
Absolutely, it's a state of. It can be a state of flow. But it absolutely feels like a state of energy. It's almost like if we're doing this in session and in meditation, the way it feels like is that you're not necessarily, you feel like you're being breathed rather than you doing the breathing. I know that sounds odd. It sounds odd as I say it, but that's genuinely how it feels. It's kind of like the universe kind of pulling you along and you're just breathing right along with it. And that's an awesome state to be in.
I imagine it as you're not the boat on the river, you are the river, right? Peter, what fear or fears do you have left?
I don't really have a fear of, I mean, there is always this constant, in a way, for all of us, especially myself, including myself, this underlying fear of death that is always there. And it's good to acknowledge that. I live with that on a day-to-day basis.
Wow.
A constant fear of death, which is something that is so deeply ingrained in us as human beings, as a survival mechanism. And it's great to acknowledge that constantly, as almost like a constant hum that sometimes, you know, has its own sort of rhythms. Knowing that that is there, knowing that how that plays a part in one's lens and thinking is, I feel, important. And that fear is constantly there in different ways. Then there is this fear of, you know, sort of physical safety, not having enough, all those sorts of things. I feel like that fear over the years has dissipated. I feel like I have a freedom for a while now to make choices and to do what I feel is my true expression in the world without being tied to, you know, this notion of physical safety, the classic sort of Maslow's. And then there's this other fear that sits maybe at a different level above, which is, can I really make a difference with the work that I'm doing to elevate everything that I do in my working life to its highest level? And that fear also exists imagine these as sort of radio stations that are always broadcasting, and I'm sort of, with my own mindfulness, choosing what to tap into. And that space is a space that I'm spending more of my time on at the moment. Really asking the question, how far can I take the work that I'm doing at the moment in business life as well as in spiritual life? Can I manifest it so that it is as, it is as progressive as I want it to be? And I'm not sure. I would love it to be, but that's my fear.
And when you share these fears, what I'm sensing, Peter, is that you're acknowledging those fears, but there's also a great comfort. Yeah, it's there. And there isn't sort of like a fear of the fear. There is just an acknowledgement of the fear, and then a leaning in and waiting and a surrendering and just sort of a sensing of what will unfold. But I think what is very powerful, Peter, is that you acknowledge and give name to it. Like you acknowledge that it's there, you describe it, and that you don't demonize it, and you just know it's there, and there isn't sort of this story around it, and there's a welcoming of it. Is that accurate?
Yeah, in a way. I mean, I think you've described it well. And many of us do this, which is we can sit in comfort in periods of great discomfort. And so being able to sit with big fires of emotion being present, not in spite of it being there, but in light of it being there, which is to say that can be true, and I can sit with it at the same time, and I can sit within that great discomfort. And so in that way, one can sit with fear, one can sit with shame, one can sit with anger, great anger, and observe anger. I mean, for example, the classic Dalai Lama quote, right, which is, it's not that I don't experience anger, but I have it for breakfast. Right? And so, in the same way, which is when I'm not trying to avoid emotion, far from it. I'm also not looking to, in a way, wallow in emotion, but simply to sit with emotion and to accept what is.
Peter, as we move towards the end of our conversation, there's so much that I want to keep on talking to you for days about. We are going to go to the app.
Yeah, let's do it.
And, the last level 5.
Okay, done.
Okay, so do you want to stay with self, or do you want to go with...
Why don't you pick? I picked the first time around.
All right, okay, good. I will go to maybe this one. Oh.
Okay.
Okay. All right, level 5, Peter.
Okay.
If you died tonight and you couldn't say anything to anybody, what would you regret not saying, and to whom? And why haven't you told them yet?
This is such a good question. I would say this to everybody that I know, and that is, I love you and thank you. Thank you. Right? Thank you. That's it. To everybody, to my parents, to my family, to my friends, to people that I've spent a lot of time with, and to people that I've spent very little time with, like we've just passed through time. That's what I would say. Thank you. Thank you from like my whole body. My whole body is saying thank you. Thank you. I love you. Thank you. And I know as I say that, you can feel what I'm feeling in my cells.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, I can.
Yeah. We've done the work.
Yeah.
And at that time, I would be okay to go. That's a great question.
Peter, I think for me, I think I've said a lot of things to many people that I have grown in confidence to say. And especially this year, to say things to my husband that I've never been able to say before, to say things to my dad, ask for forgiveness from my dad. And actually, if I died tonight, I would reiterate to my dad, my husband, my 2 brothers. They're all on their healing journey. And through generations, many of the men in my family and many other families could not be the men that they wanted to be. And these men in my family, my husband, my brothers, my dad, even my dad in his age, is now on a journey to become the man that he wanted to be. So I would say to those 4, I'm proud of them. That I'm so proud of the men that they are.
What a beautiful gift. Isn't it so powerful? Acceptance of death and the gift and the gifts that it brings.
This Lunar New Year, this 3rd, I was in the countryside in a village with my mum's cousin. And this man is a farmer. He's a very humble man. You know, he was born in this little village, rice fields. He will die there. And I asked him, what is the purpose of life? And this incredibly humble man said to me, the purpose of life is to die well.
What an answer. Oh, it's such a reminder, and I say this to so many people, and including myself. Great wisdom can come from anywhere, and it does.
So Peter, the last game is that in these cards, there are random words, and I'll flip them over, I'll read them, and the first word that comes to your mind.
Okay.
Okay?
All right, I'm ready.
All right, ready? The first word is cha, father.
Thank you with like my whole being. I'm ready. All right, next one.
Cơm tấm sườn bì chả.
Wow, that's my favorite. With
the egg or with no egg?
You gotta have egg. Sunny side up. There is this place in Ho Chi Minh City where my beautiful cousin Paul, his dad, my dad and myself have been together. My uncle's now passed away.
Yeah.
But that's our favourite place and that's our favourite dish, so as a family. So yeah, that's what it means.
Yeah, your cousin Paulie is my really good friend.
He's my hero, so yeah.
I feel his presence here right now.
Yeah, me too.
Laughing at us.
Yeah.
Okay, anchor.
My wife Jamie is my anchor. That's the absolute first word that comes to mind.
Thank you, Jamie. Origin.
Grounding.
What? 444.
444.
I don't know that these words are here. These things are here.
You know
what?
I don't mind.
Wow.
I don't mind. You know, these things that folks are suspicious. Not
Yeah, it is
they're
suspicious.
that folks don't like.
Yeah.
Like the I know on the lift.
Yeah,
there can't
there's
be like
no 13.
Yeah,
and,
exactly.
Yeah, yeah.
And number 4.
444, which is like death to
Yeah.
some cultures.
I've never really, it's never really impacted me so much.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't mind. For me, it's I kind of know that there are sort of perspectives that, and I just feel like it's a sort of, maybe it's a projection, right, of people onto things, their fears, their worries, their concerns, and wanting it to be represented somehow so that they can avoid them, And so, it's a game that I feel like I'm not really, I'm not really a part of, but I can observe it, and sometimes it's fun, but I don't take it too seriously.
Yeah. Okay. 444. So if your phone number was 444, you wouldn't change it.
I'm cool with it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Macca's.
Macca's,
It's like McDonald's for people who aren't in Australia.
Yeah, this is really bad. I think I have instilled in my children an intensive love of Macca's. and so
Very spiritual, by the way.
I feel like maybe it's the wrong thing. I don't know, but like when we're traveling, for example, if we're going to the airport. It's probably on the way, and when we're coming back, and sometimes even when we're away, we've got to try whatever the Macca's is.
In the local place.
Like Japanese Macca's is like awesome,
So what's the go-to meal that?
The
Macca's?
Kids like quarter pounders. Jamie likes fillet of fish. I like both, so I might even get both.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that's right. And
a Big Mac. What's good?
I'm not a Big Mac fan. Yeah, but there are go-tos.
Okay. Just want to say to everybody, there's no product placement. I'm not endorsed by Macca's at all. I had no idea that this word was
what's Macca's called in Vietnam?
It's just McDonald's.
Oh, really? There's no nickname? Oh, okay.
McDonald.
Okay.
That's how we say
There's no like McD or like all the different.
No, it's actually just McDonald's.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay. And of course, it's called
McDonald's.
Macca's in Australia.
Yes, because we shorten everything.
That's what we do.
Barefoot.
Barefoot, grass, having your feet barefoot in the grass. Oh, grass. That maybe it should be sand, given we're in Australia, but it feels like grass is the right word. Yeah.
Cool. All right.
Like a
daffodil. Daffodil.
Daffodil. Oh, beauty.
Yeah.
The beauty of nature. My cousins actually are named after different flowers.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that's right.
In Vietnamese?
In Vietnamese. I don't know what Vietnamese is for daffodil.
I don't know either.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I don't know.
But yeah, daffodil for me just represents the beauty of nature.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Scour.
Scour. There are different ways to read this, right? There's like scour, as in scrub, and there's scour, search. It feels to me like I'm more like scour, search. Let's find, let's find out, let's look for, let's go on a hunt.
So curious, Okay, last word.
Yeah, go.
No idea what this is. Hectic. Wow.
Hectic. Well, life is hectic for me right now.
Yes.
It's a busy time. And, I'm feeling it. I'm feeling the hectic nature of life, of work. I'm finding ways to make it less hectic. And I'm on that journey. So for folks who think, actually you've been doing mindfulness for a while, it should be totally
chill all the time.
No, I can tell you that it's not. Has it been extremely helpful? Absolutely. Could I have done it without it? Absolutely not. But is my life hectic at the moment? Yes, it is. And I'm finding ways to make it less hectic.
So I haven't done this before, Peter, with any other guest, but what I'm just sort of called to do right now is I'm going to pair the first word and the last word.
Sure, go ahead.
And I want you to tell me what's coming towards you right now. Dad and hectic.
It's dad.
Is there a message that's coming that you're sensing?
Yes.
What's the message?
Mum and Dad, they don't work on Wednesdays. I'm coming to the conclusion that maybe I can take some time out too, so that I can not work Wednesdays and spend time with them.
Wow.
Yeah, and I'm going to try to make that happen.
What a great honouring and a great message of wisdom. that is guiding you in your hectic life right now that you need from your immediate ancestor?
Yes.
Peter, I know that you are really intensely hectic. You've been so gracious, so generous with this conversation and making space for us and just being so loving. Thank you. Thank you for being in my life. Thank you for being my guide, my friend. I'm very, very grateful.
Oh, you're so very welcome. I'm filled with gratitude for the work that you do. You're shining a very important light into the world, and it's making a big difference. It has for many years now, and it continues to. And I'd love to encourage you to keep on going. And hopefully, I can contribute to that in some way along the journey. But I'm so grateful, for the journey that we've been on together, for being able to share that journey with everybody else.
Yeah.
And let's keep going. Let's keep on shining your light, my light, our light. And for the folks listening, your light's out into the world, and together we'll make a huge difference. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. Wow, everybody. Woo! Thank you for joining us on this really beautiful episode today. And I'm looking forward to diving with you in the next session. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Mimi Vu from Raise Partners. Geopolitical shifts, trade tensions, market volatility. In an uncertain world, where can investors and businesses find clarity? The Vietnam ESG Investor Conference is your roadmap. With tariffs and elections shaping supply chains and global capital flows, Vietnam's ESG transformation offers stability and growth. You'll hear from top CEOs, investors, and founders who are future-proofing portfolios and businesses through renewable energy, responsible manufacturing, and high-impact ventures. And you'll connect with potential partners through networking and investment matchmaking sessions. In turbulence, the best investors don't retreat, they reposition. Join the movement for ESG in Vietnam. Scan the QR code or click the link below to secure your spot today.